Halley smoothed the deep blue fabric of her gown, her fingers tracing the delicate silver embroidery at her waist. The dress was borrowed, the jewelry non-existent, but she held her head high. For years of surviving Leo's pack had taught her to mask every flicker of pain behind a serene expression. Tonight would be different. Tonight, her bond with Derek Hale, the Alpha King himself, would finally be revealed to the wolves who'd tormented her. She accepted a crystal glass of moonberry wine from a server, surveying the glittering ballroom filled with the region's most powerful alphas and their perfectly groomed families. Well, Halley Carter. Her blood turned cold. She turned slowly to face Leo, her ex-husband, his arm possessively wrapped around a petite blonde whose diamonds caught the chandelier light. The woman's pack crest glittered at her throat, the Silvercrest Wolves. Ancient bloodline, unbroken alpha lineage stretching back centuries. I have to say, I'm genuinely shocked you managed an invitation to this caliber of gathering, Leo said, his voice pitched to carry. Several nearby wolves turned with predatory interest, sensing drama. The Alpha Summit is typically reserved for wolves with actual standing in pack society. His fiancée, Melissa, if Halley remembered correctly, tittered behind perfectly manicured fingers. Halley's grip tightened imperceptibly on her glass, but her expression remained unchanged. Years of practice. Everyone my ex-wife, Leo announced to the growing circle of onlookers. Still struggling to accept our divorce, I'm afraid. Tell me, Halley, how exactly did you get past security tonight? Did you come as someone's plus one? Victoria, Leo's mother, materialized beside her son, her face arranged in exaggerated concern. Her sister, Celeste, flanked Leo's other side, forming a united front of designer gowns and gleaming teeth. The emphasis in Victoria's question made the insinuation crystal clear. The surrounding wolves shifted, some looking away uncomfortably, others watching with voyeuristic fascination. Surely not, Victoria continued, her eyes flickering meaningfully to Halley's flat stomach. Although Halley always did have her ways of gaining entry to places above her station, despite being completely inadequate in every way that actually matters to a pack. Before we continue, I've noticed that many of you enjoy watching my videos but haven't subscribed yet. Please help support and grow this channel by liking the video, dropping a comment, and subscribing if you enjoy the stories. Thank you so much. Now let's get back to the story. Leo pulled Melissa closer, his hand splaying possessively across her abdomen. My fiancé here comes from the Silvercrest line. 5 generations of alpha births, impeccable bloodline, fertile. He smiled cruelly, his eyes raking over Halley with disgust. Everything you weren't. Everything a proper Omega should be, but somehow failed at. Couldn't even fulfill the most basic Omega function, Celeste added with mock sympathy. For years, not a single pup. It's almost impressive how defective. A hush suddenly swept through the ballroom like a physical wave. The air itself changed, growing heavier, electric with power. Every wolf in the room felt it, that primal instinct that screamed alpha, danger, dominance, submit. Derek Hale had entered. The Alpha King moved through the crowd with lethal grace, his presence demanding absolute attention without him uttering a single word. His black suit emphasized powerful shoulders and barely leashed violence. Alphas who'd never bowed to anyone in their lives instinctively lowered their heads. Omegas felt the overwhelming urge to bare their throats. Leo's face transformed. Alpha King Derek, he gasped, shoving past Melissa and rushing forward. Victoria and Celeste scrambled after him, their earlier smugness replaced with desperate eagerness. What an incredible honor! We've been hoping to discuss a potential alliance between our packs. My family has extensive territory in the northern. Derek walked past them without a glance, as if they simply didn't exist. The crowd parted before him like water. He stopped directly in front of Halley. His intimidating expression, the one that made hardened alphas break into cold sweats, melted into something tender, possessive, utterly devoted. He cupped her face with both hands, his thumbs gently brushing her cheekbones, and those ice-blue eyes that had stared down rogues and rival packs now held only warmth. "There you are," he murmured, his voice resonating through the silent room. "Is everything okay, my queen?" The shock was palpable. Someone gasped. Another wolf's glass slipped from nerveless fingers. Leo's face drained of all color. Victoria swayed dangerously, one hand clutching her chest. Celeste's mouth fell open, her eyes wide with denial. Halley smiled, truly smiled for the first time in years. Her voice carried clearly across the stunned assembly. "Yes, my love. I was just catching up with old acquaintances." Derek's eyes flickered dangerously toward Leo and his family, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Then he deliberately turned his back on them, threading his fingers through Halley's and raising their joined hands. His voice rang with alpha authority that made every wolf's instincts snap to attention. "For those who don't know, allow me to introduce my true mate and bonded queen, Derek Hale." He pressed his lips to her knuckles, then pulled her into his protective embrace, his hand possessively spanning the small of her back. The mate bond between them flared visible for just a moment, golden threads of power that made several wolves gasp in awe. Behind them, Melissa's champagne glass shattered against the marble floor. The party transformed into Halley's personal triumph. Derek kept her close, his touch constant and claiming as they moved through the crowd. Alpha patriarchs who'd ignored her existence now bowed respectfully. Luna matriarchs who'd once sneered at her omega status now smiled with desperate friendliness, complimenting her gown, her grace, her obvious importance to the Alpha King. "Alpha King Derek," a silver-haired patriarch ventured carefully. "We had no idea you'd found your mate. The packs will be thrilled." "I found her 4 years ago," Derek said quietly, his eyes never leaving Halley's face. "She just needed time to heal from previous circumstances." The threat in his voice was unmistakable. Halley danced with her mate under the crystal chandeliers, moonberry wine flowing, laughter genuine for the first time since her disastrous marriage to Leo. Derek held her like she was precious, irreplaceable, whispering promises against her temple that made her wolf sing with joy. Across the room, the former Clearwater pack huddled in a corner like wounded animals. Leo's face was ashen, his confident posture collapsed. Victoria's carefully applied makeup couldn't hide her humiliation, dark stains spreading under her eyes. Celeste's earlier smugness had been replaced with barely contained rage, her hands clenched into white-knuckled fists. Melissa had quietly disappeared, the Silvercrest alliance obviously reconsidered. When Derek led Halley onto the balcony for air, she finally allowed herself to breathe. The full moon hung heavy and silver above them, blessing their bond. "You didn't have to do that so publicly," she whispered, though gratitude flooded through their connection. Derek turned her to face him, his expression fierce. "Yes, I did. Every wolf in that room needed to know that you are mine, that you are queen, that anyone who hurt you will answer to me." His hand settled gently over her stomach, where neither of them yet knew a miracle was growing. "You're safe now, Halley. I promise you, no one will ever make you feel worthless again." She believed him. 3 weeks after the summit, Halley woke to nausea so violent she barely made it to the bathroom. Derek was beside her instantly, holding her hair back with one hand while the other traced soothing circles on her spine. When the wave passed, she slumped against the cool tile, embarrassed. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Must be something I ate." But Derek had gone utterly still. His nostrils flared slightly, and those ice-blue eyes widened with something between wonder and disbelief. "Halley, when was your last heat?" She blinked, trying to remember. With Leo, her cycles had been irregular, painful, always wrong somehow. I'm not sure. Maybe 2 months? My omega biology has always been broken," Derek finished, his voice suddenly rough with barely contained rage. That's what they told you. She nodded, shame burning through her despite the bond's reassurance. For years of Leo's mother listing her inadequacies, the pack doctor's pitying looks, the whispered conversations that stopped when she entered a room. Defective Omega. Barren. Worthless. Derek cupped her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. Call Dr. Reyna. Now. The pack physician arrived within the hour, her medical bag in hand and her expression carefully neutral. She examined Halley in Derek's private quarters while he paced outside like a caged wolf, his anxiety bleeding through their bond so strongly that Halley could taste it. When Dr. Reyna finally emerged, she was smiling. Congratulations, Alpha King. You're going to be a father. The world tilted. Halley heard the words from inside the bedroom, but they didn't make sense. Couldn't make sense. She pressed both hands to her flat stomach, her wolf suddenly alert and protective in a way she'd never felt before. Pregnant. She was pregnant. After 4 years of being told her Omega body was fundamentally broken, that she'd never carry a pup, that her biology was an embarrassment to her designation. Derek appeared in the doorway, and the expression on his face shattered something in her chest. He was crying. The Alpha King, the wolf who'd faced down rogue packs and rival alphas without flinching, who'd built an empire on strength and fear and absolute control, was crying. He crossed to her in 3 strides and dropped to his knees beside the bed, pressing his face against her stomach. A pup, he breathed, his voice breaking. Our pup. Halley's own tears came then, hot and relieved and terrified all at once. She threaded her fingers through his dark hair, feeling the tremors running through his powerful frame. I thought I'd never have this, Derek said against her skin. After the hunters killed my family, my parents, my younger sister, everyone, I thought I was meant to be alone. That I didn't deserve. He looked up at her, and the raw vulnerability in his eyes made her wolf whine with the need to comfort their mate. You gave me back everything I lost, Halley. Everything. She pulled him up beside her, and they clung to each other like drowning wolves finding shore. I was 9 when my birth pack abandoned me, she confessed, the words finally spilling free. Left me at a human orphanage because Omega pups weren't worth feeding. I spent 17 years thinking I was too weak to matter, that my designation made me disposable. Derek's arms tightened around her, fierce and possessive. Never again. You hear me? You're the strongest wolf I've ever known. And our pup, his hand settled reverently over her stomach, covering hers, is going to grow up knowing they're loved, wanted, that they belong. Unconditionally, Halley agreed, her voice thick with emotion. No matter what designation they present. No matter what. Outside, the full moon rose heavy and silver, blessing the family that 2 orphaned wolves had finally found in each other. Leo requested a private audience 2 days later. Derek's jaw clenched when his secretary announced the Clearwater Alpha, but curiosity won out. What could the pathetic wolf who discarded Halley possibly want? Alpha King Derek. Leo bowed too low, too long, the gesture of someone desperate to prove submission. Thank you for seeing me. I felt it was my duty to speak with you. Alpha to Alpha. Derek remained behind his desk, fingers steepled, expression carved from ice. You have 5 minutes. Leo shifted his weight, and Derek's wolf catalogued every tell of discomfort. Good. This is delicate, but you deserve to know the truth about Halley before things progress too far. He swallowed hard. I was married to her for 4 years. I know her limitations. Limitations. Derek's voice dropped to a lethal purr that made Leo pale. She's damaged goods, Alpha King. I tried everything, the best pack doctors, fertility treatments, even ancient rituals. Nothing worked. Leo's voice took on false sympathy. Her Omega biology is fundamentally broken. She can't produce pups. She certainly can't carry strong alpha heirs worthy of your bloodline. Derek stood slowly, and Leo took an involuntary step backward. "You're telling me," Derek said quietly, dangerously, "that in 4 years of marriage, your mate never conceived." "Exactly. I'm trying to save you from. And you're certain the problem was her biology?" Leo nodded eagerly, missing the blade hidden in Derek's tone. "Completely certain. Our pack physician confirmed it repeatedly. Defective omega genetics. It's tragic, really, but you can't build a dynasty on. Get out." The command hit like a physical blow. Leo stumbled, confusion flickering across his face. "Alpha King, I'm trying to help you understand. You're trying to convince me that a healthy omega was incapable of conceiving." Derek moved around the desk with predatory grace. "Tell me, Leo, what exactly did your pack physician give Halley? What treatments?" Herbal remedies. Omega wellness supplements. Standard." "The name of your physician." "Now." Something in Derek's eyes made Leo's wolf cower. "Dr. Marcus Chun. He's been with our pack for decades, highly respected." "Out. Before I forget that killing you would upset my mate." Leo fled, but Derek was already reaching for his phone. His head of security answered on the first ring. "I need a complete investigation into Dr. Marcus Chun and the Clearwater Pack's medical records," Derek said, his voice deadly calm even as rage burned through his veins. "Everything from the last 4 years. And I want a full toxicology panel on Queen Halley, every substance that might suppress wolf biology or fertility." He hung up and stared out the window toward the gardens where Halley was reading, one hand unconsciously resting on her stomach. 4 years of being told she was broken. 4 years of treatments that never worked. Leo's desperate visit had revealed more than the fool intended, and Derek's suspicions were crystallizing into terrible certainty. If someone had deliberately poisoned his mate, there would be blood. The investigators' report arrived 72 hours later, and Derek read it alone in his office with the door locked. By the second page, his hands were shaking. By the 5th, he'd crushed the mahogany armrest of his chair to splinters. Wolfsbane. They'd been feeding his mate wolfsbane for 4 years. Not enough to kill. That would have been too obvious, too merciful. Just enough to suppress her wolf, to weaken her bond with her animal side, to make her believe the lie that she was fundamentally broken. The contraceptive herbs were almost an afterthought compared to the systematic poisoning documented in Dr. Chen's meticulously kept records. Records the fool had been arrogant enough to preserve. Derek's wolf howled for vengeance, clawing at his control. The omega wellness supplements had been administered daily, in her morning tea, mixed into her food, hidden in vitamins that Victoria personally delivered to her room. The entire Clearwater pack had been complicit, and Leo had known, had authorized it, had probably suggested it. There were notes in the margins of Dr. Chen's files. Patient continues to believe infertility is natural. Dosage effective at suppressing heat cycles without raising suspicion. Mother-in-law reports patient becoming more compliant, less likely to question pack hierarchy. They'd poison her body and gaslight her mind simultaneously. Derek forced himself to keep reading. The toxicology panel on Halley had confirmed trace amounts of wolfsbane still in her system. Her body had been trying to purge the poison for weeks now, which explained the nausea they'd attributed to early pregnancy. The report estimated she'd been consuming enough wolfsbane to kill a weaker wolf, but Halley's omega resilience had kept her alive. Barely. The medical assessment was clinical and devastating. Another year of exposure would have permanently damaged her ability to shift. 2 more years might have killed her wolf entirely, leaving her functionally human. 5 years would have destroyed her organs. Leo hadn't just denied her children. He'd been slowly murdering her. Derek's phone buzzed. His head of security. "We've detained Dr. Chun. He's invoking pack medical privilege and refusing to talk. Bring him to the interrogation room. I'll handle this personally." Derek's voice was empty of everything but lethal promise. "And send a security detail to the Clearwater territory. I want Leo, Victoria, and Celeste in custody within the hour." Charge them with attempted murder of the Alpha Queen. Yes, Alpha King. Should I inform Queen Halley? Derek closed his eyes, grief and rage warring in his chest.
No.
Not yet. She's just started to feel safe. I need to handle this first. He hung up and stared at the evidence spread across his desk. For years of systematic abuse documented in sterile medical terminology. For years of his mate being told she was worthless, while her own body was used as a weapon against her. When he finally stood, Derek's reflection in the window showed eyes that had gone completely wolf, ice blue replaced with predatory gold. The Alpha King had been patient, had tried to give Halley space to heal. But the wolf demanded justice, and Derek was done being merciful to those who'd hurt his mate. Derek told her everything 3 days later, when Dr. Reyna cleared her for the detox protocol. He held her hands across the breakfast table and watched her face as the truth shattered the careful peace she'd built. Wolfsbane, Halley repeated, her voice hollow. They were poisoning me. Every day for 4 years. In your tea, your food, the supplements Victoria gave you. Derek's grip tightened. You were never broken, Halley. They made you believe you were while they systematically destroyed your wolf. She pulled away from him, standing abruptly. Her chair clattered backward. The doctor visits. The concerned looks. Victoria bringing me those vitamins personally every morning, telling me she just wanted to help. Her voice cracked. I thanked her. I actually thanked her for caring. Derek stood too, but didn't approach. He could feel her rage and grief through the bond, a hurricane of emotions she'd suppressed for years. Dr. Chun kept records. They documented everything. Leo authorized it. Of course he did. Halley laughed, bitter and sharp. He needed the pathetic Omega wife for appearances, but couldn't risk me actually producing an heir. What if our pup presented as Omega 2? That would have ruined his precious bloodline reputation. She pressed both hands to her stomach, protective and fierce. They tried to kill my wolf. They tried to kill me. They failed. Derek moved to her slowly, giving her space to accept or reject his comfort. You're stronger than they ever imagined. Strong enough to survive what would have killed most wolves. And now we're going to fix what they broke. The detox was agony. Dr. Reyna had warned them. For years of accumulated poison wouldn't leave gently. Halley spent the first 2 days barely conscious, her body burning as it purged the wolfsbane from her system. Derek never left her side, cooling her fevered skin with damp cloths and holding her through the violent tremors. On the 3rd day, something changed. Halley woke at dawn with absolute clarity, her senses suddenly sharp in a way they hadn't been since before her marriage to Leo. She could hear Derek's heartbeat from across the room, smell the morning dew on the roses outside their window, feel the earth's pulse through the floor beneath her feet. Derek. Her voice was stronger, resonant with something wild and powerful. My wolf. I can feel her. He was beside her instantly. Let her come forward. Don't fight it. Halley closed her eyes and reached inward, past the walls she'd built around the damaged parts of herself, past the shame and the fear and the years of being told she was defective. Her wolf surged forward to meet her, not the weak, suppressed creature she'd known, but something magnificent and fierce. When she opened her eyes, they glowed pure silver. Derek inhaled sharply.
Halley.
Your wolf is strong. She stood, power radiating from her in waves that made the windows rattle. They suppressed her for so long that she adapted, grew stronger in the darkness. She's been protecting me this whole time, keeping me alive despite the poison. The shift came naturally, instinctively. Where there had been a woman stood a wolf, sleek and silver-furred, larger than any Omega Derek had ever seen. Nearly the size of a beta. Her eyes still glowed that otherworldly silver, and her presence commanded respect rather than submission. Derek shifted too, his massive black wolf dwarfing her, but not diminishing her power. They circled each other, and then his wolf lowered his head in acknowledgement. Equal.
Partner. Queen.
When they shifted back, Halley was crying, but this time from joy. I'm not broken. I was never broken. No, Derek agreed, pulling her into his arms. You're extraordinary, and everyone who hurt you is going to learn exactly how strong you really are. She smiled against his chest, and her wolf's silver eyes flashed behind her brown ones.
Good.
Because I'm done hiding. Halley insisted on confronting them herself. Derek wanted to forbid it, to handle everything so she wouldn't have to face her abusers again, but she looked at him with those silver-touched eyes and said simply, I need this. So he'd arranged it, a meeting at the Clearwater Pack House with Derek's security stationed outside. Close enough to intervene if needed, far enough to let Halley have her moment. The mate bond thrummed between them, his wolf on high alert, but trusting hers. Leo, Victoria, and Celeste sat in the formal parlor like defendants awaiting sentencing. Victoria's carefully maintained composure had cracked, dark circles under her eyes betraying sleepless nights. Celeste radiated barely contained fury. Leo just looked defeated, slumped in his chair. Halley walked in wearing a simple black dress, her dark hair loose, no jewelry except Derek's claiming mark visible at her throat. She didn't need adornment. The power radiating from her was decoration enough. Halley, Victoria stood, attempting her old authoritative tone. Surely we can discuss this misunderstanding like civilized. Sit down. The command cracked through the air, and Victoria dropped back into her chair as if her strings had been cut. Halley's wolf was close to the surface, lending weight to her words that no Omega should possess. For years, Halley said quietly, walking to the window where she'd once stood countless times, trying to make herself smaller, more acceptable. 4 years of wolfsbane in my morning tea. Tell me, Victoria, did you enjoy preparing it? Did you smile while you poisoned me? Victoria's face drained of color. It wasn't personal. We needed a proper Omega wife to elevate your pack standing, Halley finished, turning to face them. Someone demure and broken who wouldn't question why Leo spent pack funds on his mistresses or why your family's territory was bleeding money to offshore accounts. Leo's head snapped up. How did you? Derek's investigators are very thorough. Halley's smile was cold. Did you really think I married you for love, Leo? I was 19, alone, desperate for a pack to belong to. You saw a vulnerable Omega you could control. Your mother saw a status symbol. Celeste saw someone to feel superior to. You were nothing when we found you, Celeste spat, finally breaking. A packless Omega working at a human diner. We gave you everything. You gave me poison. Halley's voice rose, power rippling through the room hard enough to rattle the windows. You gave me self-hatred and 4 years of believing I was defective. You gave me a slow death and called it care. Victoria's composure shattered completely. We couldn't risk you bearing his heir. Not when there were better options, wolves from stronger bloodlines. You were temporary, Halley, a placeholder until Leo could secure a proper alliance marriage. The words should have hurt. A week ago, they would have devastated her. But standing here now, with her wolf strong and whole, with Derek's pup growing inside her, Halley felt only pity. You were right about one thing, she said softly. I was temporary, but not because I was weak. She moved toward the door, done with them. The Alpha King will announce your crimes at the Grand Moon ceremony. Every pack in the region will know what you did. And you'll spend the rest of your lives knowing that the worthless Omega you tried to destroy is now your queen. She didn't look back as she left them to their ruin. The Grand Moon ceremony gathered every major pack within 1,000 miles. Alphas, Lunas, elders, and heirs all assembled in the ancient stone amphitheater where werewolf law had been upheld for centuries. The full moon hung directly overhead, its silver light transforming the gathering into something primal and sacred. Derek stood at the center dais in formal ceremonial robes, the Alpha King's crown of silver and moonstone catching the light. Halley sat in the place of honor beside his empty throne, her deep blue gown flowing around her like water, her hand resting protectively on the slight curve of her stomach. Every eye had noted her presence, the claiming mark at her throat, the reverence with which Derek had seated her. The Clearwater family sat in their designated section, isolated. Other packs had already begun distancing themselves, sensing the political winds shifting. Derek raised his hand, and silence fell instantly. Even the wind seemed to still. "We gather under the moon's witness to uphold our most sacred laws." His voice carried to every corner of the amphitheater, resonant with alpha authority. "Tonight, we address crimes against one of our own. Crimes against the sanctity of mate bonds. Crimes against an Omega underpack protection." Leo shifted uncomfortably. Victoria's face had gone pale. 4 years ago, Halley Carter bonded with Leo Clearwater in what should have been a sacred union. Derek's eyes found Halley, softening briefly before turning to ice as he faced the assembled packs. Instead, she entered a nightmare disguised as marriage. With a gesture, massive screens materialized. Derek's tech team had modernized the ancient ceremony space. Dr. Chen's medical records appeared, enlarged for all to see. Prescriptions for wolfsbane, dosage schedules, notes about suppressing her wolf, her fertility, her spirit. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Several alphas rose from their seats, outraged. For 4 years, Leo Clearwater and his family systematically poisoned Queen Halley with wolfsbane. Derek's voice cut through the rising murmurs like a blade. They suppressed her wolf, destroyed her fertility, and convinced her she was broken while they slowly killed her. All to maintain the appearance of a proper Omega marriage while planning to replace her with a better option. Lies. Victoria stood, desperate. "She's manipulating the Alpha King with..." Silence. The command wasn't shouted, but it struck like thunder. Victoria collapsed back into her seat, her wolf forcibly submitting to Derek's power. "Dr. Marcus Chun has confessed to everything. The evidence is irrefutable. You poisoned my mate. You attempted to murder your queen." Leo finally stood, his voice breaking. "We didn't know she was your mate. We thought. You thought an Omega was disposable." Derek descended from the dais, and the crowd parted. He stopped directly in front of Leo, and the temperature dropped. "You thought pack law didn't apply to the weak. You were wrong." He turned to address the assembled packs, his voice ringing with absolute authority. "By the power vested in me as Alpha King, under the moon's witness, I strip Leo Clearwater of his alpha status. I banish Victoria and Celeste Clearwater from pack lands. The Clearwater pack is dissolved, its territory forfeit, its members absorbed into neighboring packs of their choosing." The moon seemed to pulse brighter, approving the judgment. "Any pack that harbors these criminals will face my displeasure," Derek continued. "This is the price of harming an Omega. This is the consequence of betraying sacred bonds." Leo fell to his knees, broken. Behind him, his family crumbled. Derek returned to Halley, taking her hand and raising her to stand beside him. "Behold your queen," he announced. "Stronger than those who tried to destroy her. Blessed by the moon with our heir." The assembled packs rose as one, bowing to their queen. Justice, finally, was done. The ceremony grounds emptied slowly as packs departed, their whispered conversations carrying on the night wind. Leo had been escorted to the border by Derek's guards, stripped of everything, his rank, his territory, his name. Victoria and Celeste followed in a separate vehicle, their heads bowed in shame. The Clearwater legacy had been erased in a single night. Halley stood at the edge of the stone amphitheater, watching the last of the guests disappear into the forest. The full moon still hung overhead, patient and eternal. Derek approached from behind, wrapping his arms around her waist and resting his chin on her shoulder. "How do you feel?" "Free," The word came out as a breath, a prayer, a promise. I thought I'd feel triumphant or vengeful, but I just feel free. You don't have to forgive them. I know. She turned in his arms, meeting those ice-blue eyes that had seen her at her lowest and loved her anyway. But I don't want to carry them anymore. They took 4 years of my life. I won't give them another moment. Derek cupped her face gently, his thumbs brushing her cheekbones. The mate bond brought us together, but that's not why I love you. Halley's breath caught. They'd said many things to each other, claimed each other, protected each other, built a life together, but this was the first time either had spoken that word aloud. I love you because you survived what should have broken you, Derek continued, his voice rough with emotion. Because you're kind even after experiencing cruelty. Because you saw a damaged alpha king and chose to stay anyway. The bond told me you were mine, but you made me want to be yours. Tears slipped down her cheeks, but she was smiling. I love you because you gave me back myself. Because you see strength where others saw weakness. Because you're building a world where our pup will never feel disposable. She placed her hand over his heart. The moon chose us for each other, but I would choose you anyway. Every time. Derek kissed her then, tender and claiming and full of promises. When they broke apart, he took her hand and led her to the center of the amphitheater where moonlight pooled like liquid silver. Under the moon's witness, he said formally, I choose you, Halley Hale, as my mate, my queen, my partner in all things. Not because fate demanded it, but because my heart does. Halley's voice rang clear and strong. Under the moon's witness, I choose you, Derek Hale, as my mate, my king, my home. Not because I needed saving, but because I want to build a life with you. The moonlight intensified, wrapping around them like a blessing. Their wolves surfaced simultaneously, his massive and black, her silver and fierce, and they shifted together under the ancient sky. They ran through the forest as wolves, joy and freedom in every stride, until they reached a clearing where they shifted back and lay in the grass, Derek's hand protective over her stomach. Our pup will know love, Halley whispered. Unconditional, unwavering love. They'll know they belong, Derek agreed. That they're wanted. That family isn't just blood, it's choice. 2 orphans who'd found each other against impossible odds. A broken Omega who discovered she was never broken at all. A feared Alpha King who learned that strength came in many forms. Under the full moon, they built their future on the ashes of their past, choosing love over fate, family over fear, and each other above all else. If you enjoyed this story, like, comment, subscribe, and share it with someone who loves unexpected endings. Your support truly means the world to me and helps this channel grow. Thank you for being here.